coming to a seated position. And the reason I like to work with a chair in these early weeks after surgery is that actually getting down onto the floor and back up again is quite strenuous. You generally have to do some weight bearing through your arms, which tenses the pectorals. It can be quite painful, and even changing gravity can be painful. So if we sort of think of how movable the breasts are, you might be comfortable here. As soon as you lie down, they're going to move. You know, they're going to move with gravity, and that can be quite painful as well. So working in a sitting position is more comfortable. There's no pressure. You know, there's just air around the whole body. So this can be a really good place to start. And so even just getting someone into a good posture could be a little bit intense and challenging. So we're looking at the alignment from the tailbone up to the crown of the head. So there's not the slouching or the rounding. So even just straightening up can feel a little bit intense, thinking about the shoulder position. They may be more comfortable with the arms away from the side of the body, so might be resting the hands forward, or maybe turning the hands onto the thighs. So again, you don't have the weight of the arm pressing in the side, and they may have a drain in one arm, or maybe a drain in the side of the body. So again, they might want a little bit of space here. And then I would just encourage people through a 3-part breath. And again, this is a stretch practice as well as a breath practice. So to begin with, you could have the hands on the belly, and this is a nice place to sort of let go of the tension and some of the stress and anxiety of just breathing into the belly. So often there might be some tension here, so you want to let that go, allow the breath to establish. And then we could see how it feels to bring the hands just around the bottom of the rib cage. That's usually okay here. And moving the breath up and encouraging the breath into the side ribs. And this can feel really intense. So again, this is a stretch and a fascia release as well as a breathing practice. So you can take a few breaths here. And then we can take the fingertips up towards the collarbones. Again, we can leave some space so it's comfortable. And then breathing in fully right up to the collarbones. So that already is going to feel like quite intense for people. And then establishing that breath is going to be really good for any future yoga practice. It is the foundation of our practice, and it's also going to be really good for the stress and the emotional processing. I mean, the breath is very powerful. And then if we wanted to combine that, we could have a hand on the belly and maybe a hand just lightly at the top, and then moving the awareness up and down the torso, doing that full 3-part breath into the belly, into the ribs, to the collarbones, and back down again. And we can see how it feels to swap hands. So again, it's a little bit of movement here. So even this top arm may be feeling quite intense. And if it doesn't work to be here, another nice option maybe is to keep the hands around the ribs to get that fuller breath. And maybe breathing with the thumb around the back, you can feel the back ribs. So breathing into the back of the body to get a fuller breath, and maybe take a little of the intensity away from the front of the chest. Good. So working with the breath in that way is a really lovely thing to do. And then you can follow that maybe with some shoulder rolls. Again, early days, this is going to feel like a lot, just very simple shoulder rolls. And the other thing that's very nice to do are some neck releases. And again, it'd be really interesting and surprising sometimes, even just the head movements. We really start to feel the connectivity of the body. So I've known women say, you know, we're doing a neck stretch, but they're feeling it. you know, the fascia is connected, so they feel it right down into the chest. So these can be very nice, and again, just dropping the chin. So those are some really simple things. Just one precaution for those early weeks, whatever practices you're doing, we're not lifting the elbows any higher than the shoulder, just for those first 3 weeks. So just being very mindful of that if you're working with someone, say one-to-one after their surgery. So when we get to 3 to 6 weeks, we're sort of halfway through that recovery. You could have a bit of a bigger range of movement. So I'm going to come down onto the floor. I folded a blanket up here, partly because it's cold, but also it's a nice thing to have a bit of padding and a bit of warmth. You know, post-surgery people feel a bit fragile and a bit tender, so we want to make it as super comfortable as possible. They may or may not like to have a thin pillow or a folded blanket under the head as well. So when we come down to the floor, again, we will try to avoid too much pressure on the arms. So we can come down hands-free, if possible, to sitting, and then on the unaffected side, you can just come down onto a side, and it may take more time than this to roll onto the back, because again, it might be tender, that change of gravity. Again, to take the feet wide, let the knees rest together. So just getting into a very comfortable position. And then I'm going to show you a couple of movements which are really useful. So the first is with the arms on the floor, just slightly away from the body. We start with the palms down, and then very simply, as you breathe in, we're rolling the arm on the floor until the palms are face up. And it's this whole spiral up the arm, so the shoulder is opening as well. So we're inhaling, really feeling that opening the shoulder, and then we exhale, rolling back down. So it's not just a wrist movement, which I'm showing here. It's the whole arm rolls on the floor, and you feel this opening in the chest, and then we exhale back. So we can do that as many times as you feel is useful. And then a nice thing to follow this, once the palms are up, you can just maybe rest here for a breath or two. And we're going to do a kind of snow angel. So using the floor for support, we start to slowly slide the arms out. You can have the elbows a little soft. And just seeing, and it might just be to here to begin with, and that's fine. You could take a couple of breaths and then sliding back down. Right. So this can be a really lovely way to explore this movement, but with the support of the floor, so you can keep the muscles a bit more relaxed, so it's less strenuous in the chest area. So we're getting the range of movement without too much strain in the shoulders and the chest. And they may just gradually be able to come a little further. So I like using movements which are gradual. So you can just go, keep going slowly, mindfully, feeling for when it's enough. And then we can stop when you reach that edge, perhaps breathe deeply. This is where it's good to start with the 3-part breath, because you can now come back to that and say, how does it feel now if you really breathe into your ribs? So again, you might get a bit more release just working with the breath. So this is a really nice movement to explore when you're in the early or that sort of in-between stage of recovery. And then as a counter, just to rest the hands on the belly, gives that nice release in the shoulder. And you can spend as long here as you like. And then finally, to show you something for once you get to about 6 weeks, and these dates are a guideline, everyone's recovery varies. But around 6 weeks, where we feel the incision hopefully has healed, I'm going to come on to hands and knees. So again, using the arm as little as possible and rolling onto the unaffected side. I'm just going to move my blanket. So again, it's nice to be comfortable, and blankets are handy. I like to use it for my knees. A lot of my students like to have a blanket for their wrists, so there might be sensitivity in the wrists. So getting you into a little bit of a stronger practice now. And again, early days, this is going to be really painful. You know, again, there's a change in gravity, there's a bit of effort through the arms, but once you get to about 6-7 weeks post-surgery, then this is safe to do. And just in hands and knees, it's really nice just to have what I call kind of freestyle movement. I invite students just to feel into their body and say, what kind of movement feels nice right now? What does your body need? And this is a really nice way of getting people to practice that inner listening. So I'm not telling them what to do. They're saying like, oh, if you need a stretch here, then do that. If you need a stretch here, then do that. So giving people a bit of time to have a bit of freestyle movement. And then a nice practice from here. We're going to take the right foot forward and we're taking it outside the hand. If we bring it in between, we're going to get the thigh squashing on the chest. So we're taking the foot outside the hand, and again, letting people find the place where it's comfortable. You can have a few little hip circles here. And then you want the knee to be above the ankle, so it's a good safe place for the knee. And then we're taking, so in this case, the right elbow onto the right knee, and we're letting the left arm just hang. You can start with a few circles here, just releasing the shoulder. And then we take the fingers to the shoulder, and we can start to circle the elbow. So nice and slow, gradually letting those movements get bigger. And then you could even get, it almost feels a bit like a twist. If we get that full movement, it's a lovely movement. Also getting a bit of strength here. This leg is needing to work. Good. And then you can see, how does it feel to start to lengthen the arm? And so when you're in a class, everybody can do something. Some people might be doing small circles here. Other people might be doing huge circles with a long arm. So it's something, everybody's doing the same thing, but practicing in a way that suits their body. And then to come down, we're taking this left hand, then the right hand, then back onto knees. And just have a little sway from side to side. Let the thigh muscles relax. And then we repeat on the other side. So finding a comfortable place for this foot. Just do a few little hip circles just to help open up that area. And then again, checking the knee position. Also check, quite often that knee drops in, which again is not helpful. You want the knee to stay over the ankle so we're not straining. Taking the elbow behind the knee, and then letting the right arm just dangle, maybe a few little loose circles. Imagine a bit of space in the shoulder, and then fingers onto the shoulder. Start with some small circles, and we're gradually spiraling larger. And I'm moving through all of this a bit quicker than I would teach it, so that you get these to, so you get the movements, you can practice them in your own time, a bit slower. And then we can start to see, how does it feel to start lengthening the arm. Good. And maybe even getting a little rotation in the upper body. Good. Good. And then when we've done enough, just let that arm release. Taking the hand down, taking your left onto both knees. And then we can rest in a wide child's pose. So again, leaving space for the chest and having the arms wherever it's comfortable. And then that's a nice place to recover afterwards. So there's a few little practices there that are helpful for those different stages. And all of them you can use 6 weeks and beyond. So they're not only for those stages, but obviously if you're working very early post-surgery, then you want to wait until you do stronger stuff until they're further recovered.